monde, bienvenue à la 28e édition de la Conférence de Montréal. Welcome to the Conference of Montreal. Merci à toute l'équipe du Forum économique international des Amériques qui rend possible ce grand rassemblement encore une fois cette année. Je salue aussi les dirigeants, les leaders économiques qui sont présents. Votre thème cette année pour la conférence, « Mener la transition verte », aurait pas pu être mieux choisi. On a le devoir de bâtir une économie verte et de réduire nos émissions de GES pour combattre les changements climatiques. C'est un grand défi, mais c'est aussi une grande occasion d'affaires. Puis quand on parle d'économie verte, le Québec a des atouts incomparables à faire valoir. On a d'abord des grandes réserves d'énergie propre, abordables. Ça permet aux entreprises qui s'installent ici de réduire leur bilan carbone. Puis on est aussi en train de se positionner comme un leader de la filière batterie avec nos réserves de minerais stratégiques. On travaille sur les meilleures technologies pour l'aluminium vert, l'acier vert, l'hydrogène vert. On développe aussi des camions, des autobus électriques. Puis Investissement Québec est plus ouvert que jamais à tous les projets d'investissement des entreprises, que ce soit du capital, prêts, des subventions. Vous n'aurez pas un meilleur deal ailleurs. What we're building in Quebec is the best place in the world to invest in the green economy. We're ready to welcome companies seeking to accelerate their green transition with open arms. So you can count on Quebec to be your partner. Donc, merci puis bonne conférence tout le monde.
Bonjour à toutes et à tous. C'est un plaisir de vous souhaiter la bienvenue à la Conférence de Montréal 2022. À chaque année, la Conférence de Montréal nous permet de réfléchir, d'échanger, de réseauter et d'en apprendre davantage sur des enjeux économiques mondiaux. Sous le thème « Mener la transition verte », la conférence de cette année ne fait pas exception. La transition écologique est une priorité de notre administration. À Montréal, nous posons des gestes forts et ambitieux afin de répondre à l'urgence climatique. Les actions porteuses que nous posons font de Montréal une leader parmi les grandes villes du monde. Notre engagement s'est d'ailleurs traduit plus tôt cette année par ma nomination à titre de vice-présidente du réseau C40. Ce réseau permet aux mairesses et aux maires de partout dans le monde d'avoir une voix forte sur les enjeux de durabilité et de transition écologique. À cet égard, la sélection de notre métropole pour l'obtention d'un bureau de l'International Sustainability Standards Board est également un signal fort de cette reconnaissance internationale. Nous sommes à l'avant-garde du mouvement mondial en faveur du développement durable et de l'investissement responsable. Et les priorités de la Ville de Montréal vont continuer de faire de la transition écologique un pilier de son développement économique. Je suis convaincue que vos échanges vont contribuer à l'atteinte de nos cibles dans la lutte contre la crise climatique à Montréal et à travers le monde. Merci au Forum économique international des Amériques pour l'organisation de la Conférence de Montréal, à tous les partenaires et à toutes les participantes et les participants. Bonne conférence.
Bienvenue à la 28e édition de cette conférence de Montréal présentée par Power Corporation. Merci à tous nos partenaires. Merci à tous nos conférenciers de partout à travers le monde qui peuvent être avec nous physiquement et virtuellement. Merci à tous ceux qui nous suivent en direct, les milliers de personnes qui nous suivent actuellement. Merci à vous qui êtes avec nous. Franchement, je suis très touché et je vous avoue que je me sentais très seul les dernières années à nos derniers événements. It's a new version of La Conférence de Montréal. It's a new and improved version of La Conférence de Montréal. It's a production now. It's an fully hybrid production. There is some new improvement. I call that improvement. We have a participant lounge that is hosted by Air Canada that will be opening around 11 o'clock and will be open until 9 p.m. when there will be an entertainment, a cultural program, and frankly, it should be quite something for the next 3 days. As well, for those who have access, enjoy the VIP lounge hosted by the BMO. It should be quite something. And there's new addition to the IEFA this year. We have a new venue. We have a new conference in Buenos Aires in November. I heard the weather in November is not too bad in Buenos Aires, so for those that are interested, be more than welcome. And we also have a new venture called the IEFA Plus with our chairman somewhere in the room, Frank Coder, that chaired this operation. Alors, Gilles Rémillard, Marie Dupont, et Frank Holder et toute l'équipe du Forum des Amériques se joignent à moi aujourd'hui pour vous souhaiter une belle conférence, a profitable conference. May you make the right contacts. I'll be around. If there's anything I can do, please talk to me. I'm pretty approachable. I'm a nice guy, so it should be. And now it's. I think Montreal, for those that are from out of town, Montreal is a great city to invest. Montreal is, it's a beautiful city. Invest in Quebec, invest in Canada. Minister Hussen, who's down there, will answer all your questions if you have a question about investment. And I'm sure you will get the right answer. So it's now my distinguished pleasure to welcome someone that I do respect a lot, admire as well. Monsieur Paul Desmarais. Monsieur Paul Desmarais is the chairman of Power Corporation, but more importantly for us, he's the chair of our Board of Governors for the Conférence de Montréal and the chair of our Board of Governors for the Conférence de Paris. Monsieur Desmarais, c'est à vous.
Merci Nicolas. Je voudrais commencer par remercier le premier ministre Legault et également notre mairesse Mme Plante pour nous supporter ici à la conférence et d'aider à ces grandes réunions et discussions, après tout, sont très importantes et nous en avons besoin. J'aimerais remercier le ministre Hussen pour être ici en personne également. Je trouve ça formidable de vous avoir ici parmi nous également. Évidemment, quel bonheur de tous être ici ensemble. C'est vrai que c'est un renouement, puis on a le goût de sortir, de voir des gens et de renouer, de faire des liens et de faire des contacts. Évidemment, la conférence a été créée pour ça. Elle a été vraiment créée pour rassembler des leaders à travers le monde, d'un peu partout, pour venir justement d'échanger et réfléchir aux problèmes qui nous confrontent et d'essayer de trouver franchement des solutions pratiques pour avancer dans nos sociétés. Obviously, there's a lot to gather about and a lot to think about. I must say, in my lifetime, and unfortunately I am getting older, so it's getting me quite a lifetime, it's been a while, but I'd say since the Second World War, I can't think of more uncertain geopolitically than we've ever faced before. And I know as a corporation we think about that, and we're not used to it. You're not used to it. We're not used to being confronted with geopolitical risk. We're not used to then thinking, what are the outcomes from geopolitical risk? We're now understanding a number of outcomes, energy prices skyrocketing, particularly in Europe, the costs are enormous to society. The food issues that are confronting the world, and now probably huge effect on the developing world, which we don't feel here, but it's going to be, unfortunately, I think, very big because of the food shortages, the energy prices, and of course, inflation. It's causing supply-led inflation plus inflation from the COVID factor as well. So as if we hadn't had enough with COVID, we're now being confronted with these new issues and probably more uncertainties, especially in the developing world, and probably confronting recessionary flows, which we've all heard about in the papers, confronting us all in the years to come. So when you think of that, you sort of say to yourself, well, it's great to be with other people, to listen to other people confronted with these things and try and find solutions. And even just talking about them, frankly, I think is really useful because I think we must have conversations between people. And of course, this theme is énergie verte. So you can imagine when you have all these things confronting you, suddenly you think, well, wait a minute, green energy, do I really have time for that? Well, we have to have time. We're living it, all of us. The climate change is huge. We have to make the time. And it's going to be tougher now because of all these other things confronting us. And so this conference this year is about solutions for green energy, but also for some of the economic challenges facing us and for all of us to interchange together, of course, make networks, and hopefully friends. Alors, je vous remercie tous d'être ici à Montréal, d'avoir pris le temps de venir. Tous nos partenaires, nous avons énormément de partenaires cette année qui sont venus d'un peu partout, non seulement au Canada, mais à travers le monde. Et nous sommes très heureux d'être vos autres ici à Montréal. Et puis aussi, je crois qu'il faut remercier le public également. Nous avons de plus en plus de gens qui ont un intérêt dans le public. Et je crois également que c'est important parce que la démocratisation des décisions et du savoir est très important pour tout le monde, pour aider les gens à être plus rassurés et à trouver des solutions. Alors, merci d'être ici.
Merci beaucoup, M. Desmarais. Merci pour votre implication, à vous, votre femme Hélène, votre fils Paul III. C'est toujours très apprécié. Merci pour votre temps. And now, my friends, it's truly a privilege and honor to welcome on stage le ministre Hussen, qui est ministre du Logement et de la Diversité et de l'Inclusion. Minister, you're doing a great job. We're very proud of you, proud of your government, and it's truly an honor having you with us. It's all yours.
Merci beaucoup. Merci beaucoup. Bonjour tout le monde. Je suis très heureux d'être ici à Montréal avec vous aujourd'hui. I want to acknowledge also that the land on which we're gathered is the traditional and unceded territory of the Kanean Keha, a place that has long served as a meeting place for an exchange amongst various nations. And I also want to acknowledge and pay tribute to my colleague and friend, the Honorable Mona Fortier, our president of the Treasury Board. It's a pleasure to serve with you every day. I also want to thank the International Economic Forum of the Americas for hosting this really important conference, and I join all of you in really appreciating this opportunity for all of us to gather together after such a long separation. We're here to talk about the challenges and opportunities that we all face in Canada and around the world as we march forward to a net zero economy. And, you know, we're very, very seized with the issue of continuing to work really hard around meeting the target of net zero by 2050. Why? Because the costs of inaction on climate change are just so enormous. We are already seeing this all around us, whether locally in our communities, right across Canada, in our continent, and beyond. More and more, we're seeing that homes are at risk of flooding and forest fires, or as we've seen in communities like Tuktoyaktuk, permanent permafrost thawing for the first time ever. Il y a un réel coût humain si nous n'agissons pas sur le changement climatique, et notre gouvernement le sait. Whether it's our plan to reach net zero by 2050, investing billions to mitigate the impacts of natural disasters, or our efforts to really have a comprehensive plan to protect our oceans and our wildlife, we in the Government of Canada are leaving no stone unturned. Nous adoptons une approche pan-gouvernementale pour lutter contre les changements climatiques, et le logement ne fait pas exception à la règle. So we're helping Canadians cut down on their emissions by making green retrofits to their homes through programs like the Canada Greener Homes Initiative. It's helping Canadians retrofit their homes to reduce their energy bills, but also to fight climate change. It's one way that people can make a difference. And you know, if they happen to live in places where flooding and other natural disasters are becoming increasingly more common, this becomes even more important for them to utilize this $4 billion program. And you already see, even before we introduced this program, Canadians have been doing this on their own, putting solar panels on their roofs, changing their furnaces, doing everything that they can to conserve energy and reduce their emissions. And you've seen municipalities also bring forward, solutions to enable homeowners and others to be able to do their part. But in the face of dangerous weather events, like what we saw in Ontario just 2 months ago, climate change is an immediate threat to the health and well-being of so many of our community members. And these events can really happen very quickly. And when that happens, we must shelter in place in our homes. Mais comment faire si vous n'avez pas de chez soi? So through programs like Reaching Home, we make sure that we're there for the most vulnerable, making sure that we're providing not only shelters, not only transitional housing and other forms of permanent housing solutions to those who find themselves on the street, but also the supportive services that they need to not only reestablish their lives, but also move forward. We're providing $4 billion in funding through Reaching Home, our federal anti-homelessness strategy that gives people access to shelters, beds, and more crucially, supportive services, wraparound services that really help the most vulnerable. Through the pandemic, we created the Rapid Housing Initiative, a permanent housing response to the dislocation of COVID to so many Canadians. And that program alone has created 10,250 permanently affordable homes that meet the needs of Canadians, accessible homes, homes that meet our energy efficiency standards. And as a person who's lived in social housing, I can tell you it makes a huge difference in the lives of Canadian families and individuals. I know I wouldn't be able to go to post-secondary education if I hadn't had an opportunity to live in an affordable housing unit. And that's something that has stuck with me over the years. So it makes sense for us to continue to double down on our investments in affordable housing. When we invest in affordable housing solutions in communities, we're not only building housing, we're also building communities. We're enabling seniors, for example, to age in place and live in the same community that they helped build next to the people that they know and love. So we're launching, for example, the next phase of the co-op housing solutions for Canada, investing $1.5 billion, including $500 million in grants, to enable the building of the first new stock of co-op housing in 30 years, in collaboration with the Co-op Housing Federation of Canada. We're investing another $1.5 billion in the next round of the Rapid Housing Initiative, because it's still needed, even though we're slowly coming out of COVID. La pandémie de COVID-19 et les difficultés connexes liées à la chaîne d'approvisionnement ont contribué à limiter à la fois l'offre de logement et leur accessibilité financière à la recherche mondiale. So we're also creating the Housing Accelerator Fund. This is something I really want to spend a minute to talk about. In many parts of our communities, from coast to coast to coast, you're finding that, the need, we have the fastest growing population in the G7, but our supply of housing has not kept up with that demand. Whether it is housing for first-time home buyers, for families who want to move from being renters to homeowners, or whether it is simply someone on the street who needs permanent affordable housing. Everything in between, you're finding that it is really difficult and is taking far too long, unacceptably long delays to get housing not only approved, but actually delivered and built. And so in the federal government, we're taking leadership to put $4 billion on the table to accelerate and incentivize the faster approvals and delivery of all types of housing across Canada. And we want to have a national leadership role to double the amount of new housing built in Canada in the next 10 years. And as a start, we will incentivize with this $4 billion program the building of 100,000 new homes in the next 2 years. C'est une bonne nouvelle pour les Canadiens, pour l'économie, et pour l'environnement. All this is to say is that we have a plan to reach Canada's goal of net zero emissions by 2050, while ensuring at the same time that every Canadian has a safe and affordable place to call home. So climate change matters, but we also have to look at what we can do by setting an example. And that's something that my colleague, Minister Fortier, will speak about, that the Government of Canada has to show that it is also leading by example, not just by policy, but the kinds of things that we do, the kinds of vehicles that we use to deliver government services, what kind of carbon footprint are we leaving behind as government employees? How can we better ensure that our supply chains and our procurement policies encourage access and the growth of a clean tech ecosystem? The immigration system is important to this. We have to make sure that there's always a pipeline for talent to come to Canada to help us grow and nurture the clean tech sector. We can export Canadian clean tech technology developed right here in Canada for climate change solutions around the world, so that we can enable countries, for example, that have a majority of the population who don't even have access to electricity, to skip the 20th century and go into a decentralized clean tech solutions for their energy needs, thereby not only saving the planet, but actually creating jobs right here in Canada. So creating more affordable homes matters, creating more opportunities for young people to access jobs in the clean, green future for our children and our grandchildren matters. And so the work that we are engaged in is contributing to the goals that we all have to make sure that Canada meets our net zero commitment by 2050. I know that it's not just up to the government. Of course, private sector has the lion's share of the responsibility on this. But I know that partnerships is what ultimately this will come down to. So I have no doubt that as we continue to work together, we can ensure that we build a cleaner, greener future for our children and their wildest dreams. Thank you for having me and enjoy this conference. Merci beaucoup tout le monde.